This is Joe,
Michelle,
Melissa,
and Shannon
with More Than a Sniff, where we talk about everything dog.
from training to nutrition,
from behavior modification to grooming.
from vet visits to dog parks.
From getting to know us to having guests. Today we're going to talk about, today on our episode, and we're in our third pillar of dog training, and we're gonna talk about a situation and talk about how we can be consistent, but also how consistency is so important to dog training. So the situation goes like this. I can't sit down and watch TV because what I want to watch are shows with dogs on it, and my dog consistently goes crazy. There's two other dogs in the household that one is she's just stressed out because of the other two, and she tends to just kind of hover in the corner. The other one gets irritated enough to start picking fights with the other one that's going crazy over the dogs. And if the owner goes into discipline or do anything with this dog, he will bite her. And so she's been bit many, many times. And so let's just talk through that scenario of how would you change that picture for this situation with consistency?
Is it? The dog that's going crazy on the TV? Is that the one that's biting? I'm
Yes.
just trying
Yep.
to follow. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the other one's an old man, and he's just kind of over it all. And so he just gets irritated when the other one gets jacked up and somewhat redirecting onto him. But the young male Jack Russell, there's an old Jack Russell, and then there's a little terrier, kind of mix-ish, little princess kind of a dog, is the picture. So Melissa, let's start with you. If you have questions, I'll answer as we go.
Yeah, so my first, I have a lot of thoughts. So there's the old man who gets grumpy, right? Or he's just over it all? Yeah. The old man. I would give him his old man time, put him in another room, give him a high-value treat, kind of, if that's a thing. I have a client right now who the dog freaks out when they play the violin, and they're both professional violinists, and so they play the violin every day. That's the cue that the dog can go search for treats around the house that they've hid, and that's redirecting, and it's been working. So my first thought is if they hear the TV, that terrier, it's the terrier, right, the Jack Russell, that giving something for him to do to get that energy out, whether it's search for something, whether it's or even be in the crate. That was also one of my thoughts. But having consistently, when you watch TV, your dogs have another job. Maybe the old man sits on your lap and the other two go away. So that's the time with the old man. But giving the other two a release at that time. But you've probably already tried that.
I have not tried it because, one, the dogs have been in the crate all day long. So this is nighttime stuff. So I hesitate putting them back in the crate for that time. And we can't involve food because they will resource guard and fight.
Can they be back tied?
Yes, not without barking and whining and carrying on. And it's chaos. So the answer is something has to be done. Something has to be done.
And I assume we've tried like water bottles and shaker cans.
Yep.
Okay.
It just escalates. We've even tried flags. It just escalates.
How much of basic obedience do these dogs have?
4 lessons in.
Okay. So you've started just general sit down, stay stuff like that. Okay.
Yep.
What I'd like to see, the one that's aggravating it all, something for him to do and if he escalates with any kind of pressure, like obviously I don't want her to get bit. I don't know how she would do with an e-collar. And it's not an option for the dog. So I'd like to see if that one had something to do. I'd hope that the other two would relax because he sounds like this one's the source of it all.
Yeah. giving him something to do escalates the old man. It's not any different than being at the TV to anything that he's moving around and escalating creates chaos. So giving him something else to do is the only other, you can't give him his own thing to do. Yeah. It is not possible in that household.
So when you say that, do you mean they all have to be doing it? I was just thinking, kind of a little bit different situation, but the Doberman that I was training, that he wouldn't come back in. Mm-hmm. So we started doing like extra steps for him to be like, oh, get on a box and then come inside type of thing, like giving his brain something that it wasn't just like, you have to come back in the house, which actually worked out really well for him because he really liked doing tricks.
Right.
But are you saying that they all have to be doing it, or
no, they don't all have to be doing it, but he can't be doing it independently.
Got it. Okay.
If that makes sense. Like,
kind of.
To give him something else to do when they're watching TV is not an option. Like, if they gave him something to do in another room, 1, he wants to be with them.
Right.
2, if there's food involved, then the other 2 would just fixate on to getting into his room. But the biggest challenge is they work all day long. They've been in their crates, and they want to have them out for that evening time.
Have we done a restraint down on him?
Yep.
And
he'll go right into it.
Okay.
If he gets stressed, he'll go right into it.
So I was just thinking, like, if you started with a restraint down before you turn the TV on,
Mm-hmm.
and like is there 2 people in the house? I don't even know.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then like turn the TV on while he's calm and start there. That was just a thought.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
That was kind of my thought in getting the dog a muzzle so he doesn't bite the owner in that situation. So turn on TV, it's restraint down time. And so as she's watching TV, she'll get that one with the muzzle on, knowing so that she won't get bit. Because I'm assuming if my dog bit me every time I tried to discipline it, I would go into it with a different energy. And if this is a pattern of behavior that the dog knows, I escalate, I get out of it. But getting the muzzle on and having a good muzzle experience with the food, but getting muzzle trained. And so, okay, TV's on, that means you're going to a restraint down. And thinking and kind of talking about it as it's doggy savasana time. We're going to relax. And getting that dog restrained down, literally, to calm down, then that would calm the owner down, which would probably calm the old man down. And anytime that escalates, there's a restraint down. I also wonder if I don't know if they have the ability to watch TV with Bluetooth and slowly turn up the volume or change.
So I don't know if this has anything to do with that. Prudence, it's not a hearing thing.
Yeah.
It's not at all.
Yeah, that's
her.
what I'm wondering, if we could narrow it down.
Literally,
exactly
the dog will be in the background
visual.
walking across, and she'll start barking. And
Yeah.
we won't even know there's a dog there. We're like, what? Okay.
Yeah, I think muzzle and restraint down.
So I think
Hasn't worked.
Hasn't worked. I was going to say, that was my thought, was just like put him in a restraint down.
Because he'll go into it. It's fine. He
have him on a
accepts it no matter
leash,
what's going
obviously,
on.
so that once he gets up, you have control of him. I mean, I think he should probably be on a leash all the time, it sounds like, so that
Yep.
they don't have to grab him physically, because obviously that will escalate things. So restraint down while the TV comes on. If he gets up anxious and stuff, then he goes to his crate. Is he good in his crate? I don't know how that,
He's
like...
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not like a calming experience for him to be
No.
gone. Got it.
Nope.
Okay.
No. Yeah, it has been it's been a bit of a challenge because you can't ask people to change what they watch and what they're doing and what they enjoy doing. And the household coming into it was incredibly chaotic and dysfunctional. And so we started with offering behaviors, which actually was okay, not great. Leash on all the time. Created probably a 20 to 30% connection in general, not anything great. They are really, really good at doing their homework. The dogs have progressed, kind of. And so one thing that they get frustrated about is the time that it is taking to get even to
I
this
can't imagine.
point.
Our household is so, like, my house is really calm.
Yeah.
And we are big TV watchers, like
Yeah.
and movie watchers.
Yeah.
We always have been. So I can't. This sounds so frustrating to
Yep.
me.
Yeah.
I know Shannon's house is really calm too. When I picked up my dogs the other day, nobody barked, not even Rambo. It was crazy. I was like, "What is going on here?"
Yeah. Yeah. It has been, it's been challenging. The dog likes to work, as you guys know, Jack Russells are really not connected dogs to their people. And so he loves to go out and chase all the rabbits around that yard that are feral rabbits all over the place. And that can create some problems too. Because the old man's a Jack Russell too. He's just older and kind of over it, but he will accelerate with it, and then fights happen. And you put any pressure on him, on the younger dog, even on the older dog, they'll redirect onto you. So they go to their bed really well. They will back tie, but won't settle in the back tie at this point, unless she's engaged with them. And I can't use a muzzle because if the old man redirects onto the young one, I mean, it's not okay for him to not be able to defend himself. And so here's where we started yesterday. And it's not really what they wanted to hear or what I had to say. Is he's going to be on his bed. You're going to have the leash on. The other two can just be hanging out. And the instant he escalates, the old man will get up. Like he gets up and is ready. So the instant that the young dog escalates, the old man needs to be redirected consistently every time he gets up to try and take charge or try and correct, that he is redirected to his bed. You can hang on the couch until you escalate or until you try and take charge, and then you have to go to your bed. And he will do that. It's a little bit chaotic because he will redirect, so you have to take it fairly calm. And these owners are not calm people at all. And so getting them to just go to your bed, get on your bed, while you're holding the one that's going crazy and getting there. And then once he's on his bed, he's working for him. Like that's enough for his old brain. So Melissa, you're on the right track as far as giving them things to do, but everything has to be de-escalated of nothing. Really, the job is nothing to do. And then go right to the young dog, and he has to start working. So she calls him off of his bed. He works, he sits, he downs. No food involved, because we can't, these dogs literally, they're either biting you or biting each other when food comes into the picture. So she plays with them. She has games that she plays with them. They're in their crate, and then she pulls out one at a time and does those games, but that's all we can do in it. And so it's all pressure-based stuff. You come out, you work. When he settles in, because sometimes he uses his restraint down to get out of things. Like he'll put himself into restraint down, like all the way over to his side. He works through it. He gets really stiff just to get out of working for you. Like, well, I'll just do that. And so it's been challenging of everything that we would go into. He has manipulated around it. So I had him turn the TV on dogs on Netflix, and I worked him the whole hour, and he was escalating himself because he didn't like the pressure, and so his release of pressure was to be on his bed. And I was fine if he watched TV, but the instant he escalated, old man to the bed, him start working. And so he finally, I think we were in the last 5 minutes of the show, that he finally laid down on his bed, put his back to the TV, and didn't want anything to do with it. So being consistent with that is going to be incredibly hard because they want to come home and relax and not have to do anything and want the dog to be there. And this is probably going to be months of this, not just a week of doing this that it's going to be fixed. It's going to be months of every time you turn the TV on. He doesn't mind. I mean, football doesn't escalate him. So that's, I mean, the husband's pretty happy about that. But that's not what she wants to watch, right? So
there's a commercial with a dog on it.
Right, exactly. And so staying consistent with that little exercise of you either work or you sleep. And working has got to be incredibly channeled into something very specific that doesn't escalate the old man and de-escalates the young dog. And so it was even for me to stand there for that whole hour, because I don't like pushing a dog for a whole hour. It's hard on him. But we put him in his crate, and he just wants to whine and carry on because he wants to be with everybody. It was daunting.
This kind of reminds me of one of my very first clients, the two ladies that had the...
Oh, yeah.
It reminds me a lot of that.
Yeah.
A little bit different in the fact that, like, with them, I think their hard challenge was that one of the dogs really just wanted out of the situation.
Yeah.
And they really wanted him to be with them.
Yeah.
And it was fine for him to go because there was another person in the house he wanted to be with.
Right.
And I think that was the hardest piece for them was, like, it's okay to let that dog go and have his time.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, I want him to be with me. But it just was not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But this whole situation reminds me a lot of that. And it was a really, like, it was a hard case.
Yeah.
Because it was, and like with those guys, it came out of nowhere. Like, they were totally fine. And then one day they weren't.
Right.
And
Yep. Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
it reminds me a lot of that.
Yeah. Everything that you can think of and start creating with behavioral problems, and this is very specific to somewhat of it's an aggressive household. The breed in general is aggressive, and the owners are incredibly intense, incredibly loud. They're not calm people to go, okay, now we need to shift your whole feeling of your household, because they will happily create these, like, they love to create this play and this do something, and let's, like, it's totally, like, it stimulates them as well, like with the dogs. And so it's been hard, Melissa, because I've had to pull all of that out. Like, you can't do anything. Like, everything we do has to be so calm but in a working way for these dogs.
Oh, I mean, those ladies, we had to teach them for them to relax.
Yeah.
That was a big lesson we did with them,
Yep.
was just that you guys need to, like, start yawning and, like,
Yep.
stretching and, like, being calm.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot.
Yeah. And the Jack Russells really, honestly, could care less about the people. And so this working piece for him, he's going to go, well, I don't really want to work for you, so I'm going to be quiet on my bed. And that's really what it turned into, even for me, was he was like, yeah, I'm over you. And then I would ask him to sit, and he would try and scooch to his bed to sit. Like, yeah, no, you don't get to be on that bed until I send you there. So they've done, like, I can send him to his bed and they go. But the consistency of that piece right there, he was over it. There was times that he climbed up that leash at me, and I just had to keep asking him to sit and not escalate with him, not discipline him in any way. And really, it's just, no, you're going to work. And I'm going to give you pressure, and you're going to work. And then I'm going to relieve the pressure by sending you to your bed, and that's where you need to settle into. And it's been a somewhat of a challenge for me, because everything that they do goes against the grain of what we should be able to do and go into a home and fix it. And the whole household, like, pushes against every bit of training that way. And I started in that direction, Melissa, was let's give, you need a release. Let's give you that job. So then when it is TV time, that his needs are satisfied. The TV comes on. This is what we do. We've back-tied. We've put on beds. The little prima donna, little terrier thing reminds me a lot of Ripley. where I just really just want to sit here and I don't like the chaos. And when Ripley was in other homes, the chaos was just too much for her, so she would find her own things to do. And so, the little terrier, we had to crate her because the stress of it, she would destroy the carpets and, everything. So she's in her crate. She's not happy about being in her crate. She's peeing in her crate. There's just so much going on. And I can't, if all those dogs were separated into different homes, it would be actually super fun because they're hardworking. They'll do stuff, but it overall in general, keeping everything consistent in such a backwards way for these Jack Russells of really I don't want you working is hard. And so staying consistent for a long time to get this accomplished is one of the hardest pieces for owners when we're dealing with behavioral problems is keep the course, stay consistent, don't change what you're doing because any little bit of change is going to shift into that, going back to what they already know. Shannon, what's your take on this?
This is exactly the reason why people have a hard time being consistent because, you try something and it doesn't work and you try something else and it doesn't work and then you're like, I don't know what to do. This dog's doing this thing. This dog's doing that thing. We can't use food. We can't, all these things that you learn that we start from our basics, when none of that works, then you get so frustrated that you don't know what to do that it makes it even harder to be consistent. And that's the perfect time to get help from a professional that has tried things on had experience with multiple dogs. So then you can say, when it doesn't work because you've done it so many times, you have more things to go to than the average person that's just owning a dog. You know what I mean? But once it's hard, you have to find in yourself how to overcome your frustration to be consistent too. Because once you know what to do, to try, you can't let that frustration overtake you to the point where you're failing. So it's a hard balance because you have to be consistent to the dog and you have to also have a consistency within yourself. Right. And sometimes you have to do things like maybe meditate before you get your dogs out to watch TV or turn on classical music while you're training or, whatever that you do to help calm you to start, it is another piece of that consistency equation.
Michelle?
I completely agree with all of that as well. But I'm just trying to think back because personally the biggest behavioral problem I ever had was Rambo. And I'm thinking back of all the work we put into him when he was younger. And I just want everybody to know it is hard and it is emotional. It is not fun. It is dealing with a behavioral issue with a dog is so emotionally draining. It's not even just the physical part of it to have to work that dog for an hour. It is. I remember just days bawling because Rambo was still biting people, just bawling and which is so funny if you think about it now because he's he loves everybody now. I don't know what happened, but
stayed consistent.
Right, exactly. Yeah, nope, that's exactly what it is. Is that and I can honestly say he was not perfect. We started training with Joe when he was maybe a year, maybe.
Yeah, right around 10, 11 months.
Yeah, probably something like that. And I wouldn't say that I really trusted him around other people till he was 5.
Yeah.
And even then, it's probably been the last 2 years he's allowed to go to the door.
Right.
And even then, he actually goes into the bathroom with Murphy, if I don't know who's coming through the door.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time.
Yep.
And so being consistent is the only thing. Just follow through. I 100% agree with Shannon. There are definitely days that I seriously was just bawling hysterically, but and we lived in an apartment at the time, so I had to just be take a big deep breath and be well, we're going outside. Hopefully nobody's right out the door. But yeah, it's tough, but stick with it. Stick with one thing at least for 2 months. Just give it and then if you don't see improvement at all by then you can move on. Obviously get a professional first if you're having behavioral issues. Yep. I'm a trainer now, but I wasn't then.
Yep.
And I was so frustrated.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Melissa?
After I had a lesson on Friday with the violinist, and afterwards it was such a good lesson. And after I left, and I really had like the realization, like all of this is bigger than us. With behavioral issues with the dog, it's bigger than us. It's bigger than the dog. And so thinking about like my own dogs and like other clients' journeys, it's bigger than us. So we need to, one, not be selfish. And I think it's very easy for humans to be self-centered and what about me kind of mindset, and go, okay, well, what about the dog? Well, what about us? What about the pack? And so keeping that, I had the clients write the dog, what's the dog going to be doing in 5 years when they play the violin, and what's the image? And I'm like, put that on the fridge. Put that in your violin case. And yeah, it's going to be a stressful week. It might be a stressful 2 weeks, but it's bigger than us. So we're going to, and I think just having that in your mind is like, oh, okay, it sucks in the moment. I've been there. I've cried. I've punched walls. Well, not really, but wanted to, because it is frustrating, but it's bigger than us. So, and realizing that your dog is going through some crap too. They're not enjoying it. And so realizing that it takes that consistency. It takes the dirty work to get somewhere. And just remind yourself of that goal, to work towards it.
So one thing, if you're out having behavioral problems out there, or even just starting your training journey, writing down what you want that to look like in 5 years is a great goal. And I think that's when you can say, I've trained my dog when they've hit 5, and everybody wants to go, okay, we've done a year of training. Okay, we've done 6, so now that we should be done. Or the dog's 2 now and it's supposed to be an adult, so we should be all past all the puppy stuff. And so I think that's a good place to start, is where do you see and what do you want your dog to be in 5 years, I think is a great ending here.
Well, I think people should do that before they get a dog.
Oh, totally.
And then you can find the right dog.
Yep.
Because some dogs, I mean, when I think about it like that, like Murphy's never going to stop training. Like, he just can't.
Yeah.
His breed can't.
Yeah.
Where, like, I mean, Rambo, we still have to be very consistent with his behavioral stuff, but him and Prudence, they don't, I mean, the actual training process is just fun for them at this point.
Yep.
So there are different breeds for different things.
Right.
Murphy will, it always will be there.
Yeah, for sure. So that's our challenge to you is think about, if you have a dog, what does it look like in 5 years? And stay consistent and stay the course. If you don't have a dog yet and you're on that journey of finding a dog, work with somebody that will help you find the right dog, but also know what you want that picture to be in 5 years for sure.